to the Happy Event Planner. And today we have an extremely happy event planner with us. And if nothing tells it, his name says it all. So we have Joe Pardo on the line with us today. But let's just call you SuperJoe, because that, my friend, is what you go by. Yes?
Yes. I appreciate that.
I love this from like a branding perspective, because people will remember you. They remember that name. I absolutely love it. Did somebody give you this name? Did you give it to yourself? Like, how did SuperJoe ever come out to be super?
One of my best friends is like a brother to me. He was working with me at my family's company back in 2005 to 2007 it was. And there was like I was going through a really tough time in my life. There was a girlfriend, on again, off again girlfriend thing going on. And I was like really trying to figure out like where I wanted to be and do things. And I come back from a vacation, and we actually got to share an office. So he drew this picture. And if you go to my website and go to the about page, superjoepardo.com/about, you can actually see the picture that he drew. And it's a picture of SuperJoe. And I asked him, why did you draw this? And I asked him later on so I could get the quote and put it on the website for people to see. And I'm always trying to raise other people up and really bring the super out of them. And that's the way that he felt about me ever since I've known him since I was 6 years old, which is odd because he's about 6 or 7 years older than me. So, as a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old, we bonded over video games. And it's just, we've always, been together. But point being is that I put that in my desk, and years later, when I left the company in 2014, I was going back to clean out my desk, and I found the SuperJoe drawing in my desk, and I was like, oh wow, I forgot about this. And I was like, maybe I should register the domain name. And so I did, and then about a year later, I was like, the Dreamers Podcast is my podcast, but as I went through and learned, like, that's not the brand. I'm the brand, and I need to really play that up. So I leaned full into it, even though there were some people that were like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm like, no, I think it'll be fine. I think we'll be good. and it worked out. It's worked out since then. So I think it's cool when people give you the nicknames and things, and that you can run with them in a way that is unique. I mean, there's other SuperJoes. Like if you go on like twitch.tv, there's a SuperJoe there and all that, but SuperJoe Pardo, there's no other SuperJoe Pardo. When people Google Joe Pardo, they're finding my stuff. And I have other Joe Pardos that have been reaching out to me literally from around the world, just checking in to see like, oh wow, it's so cool. Like I Googled my name, I found you, and it's so awesome what you're doing here.
It's so cool. I mean, let's talk about this guy's artist capabilities for a second. It is not in my mind. I don't know what I expected, but when I pulled it up, it's very much it's a little bit more than a stick figure.
It's like a bubble figure, yeah. Yeah,
it's like one step above a stick figure, but I love it so much, and anyone should go and just look at this and read the story at superjoepardo.com/about. But let me read for the listeners what Matt says here, because I think that this really draws a good picture, no pun intended, but pun intended, of who you are and your character. So he says, I drew the SuperJoe Pardo image because it represents Joe's seemingly superhuman talent to excel at everything he does. The dedication and mastery he's achieved through his many pursuits demonstrates that once you've mastered yourself, the sky indeed is the limit. So awesome. I love it. So, Joe, tell us, you've got two big events that, based on this quote from Matt, are clearly very successful. You've put a lot of thought and energy into them. So talk to us. You've got the Independent Creator event and you have the Super Entrepreneur event. Let's start with the Independent Creator event. What is this event, and what are all the goods that come with this event?
Yeah, so it started out as I went to a conference down in Florida. It was like Podcast Florida or something like that, put on by Jared Easley and Lou Mangello. If you know Lou Mangello, WDW Radio, it's absolutely huge. And anyway, I go to this event and I come back and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like watching Peyton Manning on like Sunday Night Football. And I'm like, I wonder if there's something that's binding people together in the podcasting community and artists. And this is in 2014. So before Serial, before like things really started to pick up. I mean, at that point, podcasting had already been around for about a decade. So, but it wasn't really mainstream or anything like that. So I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, there's the Philadelphia Podcaster Society. Shout out to them. They do great work. They have an event every single year where basically it's like a concert for podcasts, right? So all these podcasters they come to a bar, they set up their podcast, they set up an equipment, and then they have time slots and they just host their show at that bar at that time, which is awesome. I've been a part of it a couple of times. They do great work. And I was like, let me put together I want to put centers where we can come together. We can learn about podcasting. We can learn about content creation. I've been doing websites and stuff since '96 as a 10-year-old writing about video games. So I've been I grew up on the internet, like very much so. And I was like, let me put something together. I was like, well, maybe let's go bigger than Philly. Let's see if we've got Mid-Atlantic. I went with the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. And at that point, I'd already been podcasting for almost a year, 8 months or so. And I was like, I already have this huge community of people that I've met throughout the world. I can bring a lot of those people in. Even though it's called the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference, you don't have to be part of the Mid-Atlantic to join it, to be a part of it, to attend any events. And we'll host a conference and we'll do it in September of next year. So lo and behold, time goes by. We have an event in March. That was December. In March, we have a meetup in New York City at Bryant Park. We go out to dinner. There's like 30 of us there. And then I was like, all right, well, let's do an event in September. So I was able to rent a school gymnasium of all places, a Catholic school gymnasium. I was able to rent it for $0.00. All I had to do was donate my time to teach a class to the middle schoolers of that school. There's about 12 or 13 of them in a after school program that was like, it was a computer class or something like that. And I was like, the principal and I got along really well. And the whole reason I got to even meet them was because of my podcast. They had MasterChef Junior in the second season. One of the kids that was on the show made it to the very end of the series of that season and went to that school. So, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to the viewing party, and I got to know all the people and interview them. And it just became this, this thing. So I got to speak at the school. I taught the class. Got the thing for free because I wasn't sure how many people we'd actually have show up. We had ended up about 50 people in that school gymnasium, and a lot of those people ended up becoming really close, really tight knit people. Like we have a very special bond over that event. But part of the thing that I like to do, growing up, I grew up in a family business, and we would host our annual event in February, and my grandfather would put it on. It'd be a vendor night, so you'd walk in, you'd sign in. There's vendors all the way through, and then you get to the other side of the hall or the end, like it's two separate halls at this catering place, and you get to the second hall and it's open buffet, free buffet, open bar, everything's there for everybody to have, and it's like old friends in the trucking industry, meeting up, and it's this great thing. It's like 6 hours long. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So I was like, when people come to my event, I want to feed them. So we actually got that caterer to bring food to that gymnasium, and people loved the food and had a great time. And I like to do things that are a bit different. So that was the first time we ever did the creative podcast competition workshop, where in the spirit of like MasterChef, basically at the time I went to the dollar store and bought like four or five items, put it in a trash bag, and gave it to groups of 4 podcasters. And those podcasters had to create a podcast in 20 minutes and then perform that podcast impromptu, more or less, on stage. So they had to come up with their own intro music, outro music, utilizing the things as the words and the theming of that. And then they were judged by some people who went on to, one of them became podcast Hall of Famer, Dave Jackson. So it just, it just shows you like the people that were there. It went, but it was incredible. The video that came out of that is so hilarious that every year we've done that. Last year we actually did it, even though we were virtual with the event over Zoom. So it was magical then, and it's still magical now. Now we just do slips of paper or like with 6 words on it in an envelope. It's a little easier. I don't have to go to the dollar store and buy a whole bunch of stuff that ends up sitting in my closet for literally years. So I'm like, I might use this again. I don't know if I use this pirate sword, but I might use it again at some point.
I think that's so funny. Yeah. Like event planners always have like this, or at least I did too when I had my event planning company, like just like this stash closet, right? Just like full of crap from, and maybe I shouldn't say crap, but potentially crap from past events. It's like you don't really want to give it away because of that. Like, oh, well, I might use it again, but I probably won't. But it's like something, and I don't want to just like throw it away, So it's just like it's like a utility closet full of, we'll use the word stuff this time.
Stuff. Yes, it's stuff. It is crap until everything's crap until you use it in the right context, right?
It's so true. It's so true. When I sold my company and no longer needed this stuff, it took me a couple years, quite honestly, to go through the boxes and actually just say, Amy, you either need to throw this away or you need, if it had any value, to donate it. I don't know why I felt so attached to it, but for some reason.
I know the struggle. I have so many things. I have a lot of hobbies and things that I do. So I have a lot of things that's like, I don't use it all the time. I might only use it maybe once a year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm not getting rid of it.
That's right.
It's worth too much. I'm not going to buy it again. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. That's awesome. So if people want to check out this conference, it is indieconference.org, and that's INDIE conference.org. And you are performing it in September. But where is it physically located?
We've been outside of Philadelphia every year. When we changed the name in 2019 to Independent Podcast Conference, and now it's Independent Creator Conference. It was always been held outside of Philadelphia, but the plan when we changed the name was to be able to hold events outside of the Philadelphia area. The reason it's in the Philadelphia area is because that's where I live. So and it's convenient. It's like 20, it's like 10 minutes from my house, but it's also 20 minutes or less from the airport, from the Philadelphia airport. So it makes it very easy to get to. For the 5th anniversary, we actually went to Atlantic City to hold it, which was awesome. I mean, but it made everybody's journey to it a lot further, to get to. So it was great. Well, it was a great time. We everybody loved the location, but it, ultimately it was like, it's not as convenient to get to as where we do it right outside of Philadelphia in South Jersey.
Hey, I mean, that works too. It's so funny. It's like, okay, where do we have this event? Well, should it be a tier 1 city? Should it be a tier 2 city? Like, where should it go? And sometimes when we are the planners of the events, it is just so much easier and convenient. And I feel like maybe we can put on more valuable events when we have better access to our own resources that are local.
Well, that's the thing, because we know the people, we know the area, we know, we can actually go and see the hotel without having to fly there. Because that's the other thing is one of the things that I've always tried to do with my events is make them as inexpensive as possible to open the door for as many people as possible. It doesn't mean free, and it doesn't mean $20. Though our first event, I think, was like $35 a ticket, and I basically lost. I think at the end of the day, it was like we lost like $3,000 at the whole thing. But I'll tell you this, and this did not everybody knows this part of it is after the event, we did an after party at my house, which we've actually done. With the exception of when we went to Atlantic City, we've done after parties at my house every year. And we've had 10, 15, 20 people come back and just hang out around the fire and have a great time. But yeah, I mean, I bought pizzas for everybody. And I think we watched the Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao first fight that night. Cause it just happened to be that night. So I was like, wow, how magical is this? Like, pay for the fight. Like, it's not a big deal.
I love this. And I want to point out too, that there's just like innovation all all around you. And so I think like you just beam with innovation. You can see it, you can just like hear it in some of the things that you're saying. But sometimes like for events, we want to have like that perfect venue, or we want to have like that perfect place for the after party, or the perfect whatever, like you name it, the perfect food, beverages, experience. And also, sometimes we can be a little innovative, still put on a great experience, still put on a great event. And I do think that events have like this kind of lifeline a little bit. Like I used to explain it when I had my company, like, okay, this event, if I was putting on an event for someone, I would say, okay, this is the first year, this is your baby. Right. And and this baby is going to grow. So next year, it might look a little different than it did the year before. 5 years from now, it's going to look very different than it did our first year. But to allow like the life of the event to grow, and you always have to start somewhere. But the reality is you can start somewhere. So absolutely. I love that so much.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had 10 people sleep at our house for that first event too. Because there were so many people coming from out of state that were just like, can I crash on your something? And I'm like, yeah. So we actually I went and bought like a couple of extra inflatable mattresses at the now defunct Kmart down the street from my house. And yeah, I mean, it was like whatever we could do. Right. And I made that money back in the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. And we grew. We moved to a hotel, which the hotel we are actually at now. We've hosted 3 of the events at that hotel. This year we'll be hosting it at that hotel. It's a Holiday Inn, which doesn't sound exquisite or anything. But the thing that people always tell me and why they love that event so much is because part of why they love the event is because when they walk into that hotel, everything is right there. Literally, as soon as you walk in the door, there's the ballroom right there. The bathrooms are to the right. The bar is right there on the left. There's table seating everywhere. There's couches for people to hang out right there. There's a pool table on the other side of the bar, and the check-in's right there on the left. And it's like, where's everybody hanging out? Literally right here. You walk in and your people are there, right? There's no like, oh, I go down this hall or that hall. Are they on that level or this level? When we hosted it at Ocean Resort Casino down in Atlantic City, that was one of the things where it's like, I tried to make things where it's like people could get together at certain bars and things. It just didn't work as well because, certain drink options are at this bar versus that bar versus, it's too many options, too big, too spread out. And the people that are there mostly are not for your event. They're not your people. You show up to this hotel. There's a couple of transient workers, like, electric workers, water workers, pipe fitters, whatever. But there's also mostly our people hanging out in there. So that's the thing that really makes it kind of magical. And one of the reasons why I don't know if I'd want it to get past like a 300 to 400 person event. It just would, to me, it would be it wouldn't be as personal. And I personally host all my events. So I've only spoken at my event once in person. And that was to announce basically that we were changing the name from MapCon to ICON, Independent Podcast Conference. And so for the most part, I'm up there hosting. I'm up there. I'm vlogging. So I got I don't have the camera on here, but I got I'm vlogging. I'm hosting. I'm running the tech. I'm running the audio. I'm running the video for the virtual ticket. I have generally one person, Amy J. Shout out to her. I'm wearing her wristband here. And she runs the time because she knows I'm very tired, running on very little sleep, running all over, making sure there's water in the back and things like that. So it's one of those things where it's like now after this past or 2019, I had 5 people step up and like, Joe, we need to help you. We want you to be able to not be dead at the end of this.
Yeah.
Plus I run a private course too before all that was happening. So like I'm already speaking for 3 to 5 hours before that. And it's just one of those things. But I think the other thing that we do that's a little different is we include professional headshots. We have a photographer that good friend of mine, comes out of Long Island, which is like a 3-hour drive to come and do the photography for the event as well as headshots for the event. So it's like, you're getting food, you're getting headshots, you're getting to meet, it's one. The other thing is we do one one stage. There is no like, oh, now we're going to breakout rooms and things like that. I keep it one stage because I want people to get to know each other. I want them to rub elbows with the Jessica Kuffermans of the world and the Dave Jacksons of the world. And I want them, I love the vibe of building inside jokes throughout the day because everybody's seeing the same talks. And to me, it's just, people use the word family. I don't generally try to use that word because it feels a little overexposed at this point because everybody's trying to be like, oh, we're family. And it's like people feel that way. That's awesome. I love that they feel that way about me and about the community. And that's, like I said, when you come to my house, you're getting fed. It's the Italian thing in me. But when you come to my conference, we're going to feed you and we're going to make sure that you're having a great time and getting to make real connections that go a long way.
Awesome. I love this so much. So many gold nuggets here. Joe, we got to have you back on the show so that we can talk about the super entrepreneur too, because if it's anything like what you're talking about with Icon, I'm sure it's amazing and cliche, very super. So great to have you on the show. Thank you for all your knowledge and sharing this information with us. If people want to find you, where can they go?
It's so easy. It's superjoepardo.com or indieconference.org if you want to learn more about the conference coming up September 11th, 2021. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Like we're probably gonna be smaller, this year. I'm only expecting between 50 to 100 people probably, which is fine because then we can kind of social distance. I don't want everyone to be on top of each other. I want everybody to feel safe and have a great time and feel safe myself too. I mean, even being vaccinated, I have kids at home that aren't vaccinated yet. So being, as cautious as possible without like packing as many people in as possible just for the sake of doing that. But yeah, tickets are available now. We're still open to speakers. I don't know when this interview will be live, but we are open to speakers until I think the 28th or something like that. And we have a limited schedule for speakers this year. Normally I try to jam pack as many in and send Amy over the moon. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing? We get less speakers, it's hard. But I do the best we can to get as many people, as many voices and opportunities for people to speak as possible there.
Awesome. And if anyone is listening to this past the date, this is an annual conference. So still check it out because there are opportunities too. Oh, and there's a virtual opportunity. So go to indieconference.org to check it out. SuperJoe, thank you so much. Thanks for being on the Happy Event Planner.
Thank you so much for having me, Super Amy. It's been wonderful to be here. And congratulations on the new podcast.
Thank you.